Okay, I think we're going to get started. I am going to share my screen here, and if everybody can let me know if they are seeing a local rapid recovery planning slide.
Yes.
Okay, great. We will get rolling and see if any others join us as we go. I'm going to start out, and Chris Rembold from the town of Great Barrington will be joining me in the presentation. And we will hold questions until we're done with the presentation, and also hold any introductions of meeting attendees until that time. But please know that we will have an opportunity to do that. Okay, welcome to today's community session. And thank you for participating. It's a beautiful day out, and I'm sure there are lots of other options you could have chosen. We'll try and keep this quick and informative, and also give time for plenty of questions at the end. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available for those who are unable to participate today. Here's our agenda for today's session. I'd like at this time to just ask Chris Rembold from the town to introduce himself and to share from the town's perspective why they chose to opt into this program.
Thanks, Laura. Sure. So my name is Chris Rembold. I'm the assistant town manager and director of planning and community development. You know, when I started in this job over a decade ago, I was the first town planner, and we hadn't done in Great Barrington much downtown planning relative to understanding our downtown business economy, understanding who was here and what their needs might be. And over the years, we had sort of tried to do that in fits and starts. This year, obviously, COVID took a big swipe at everybody, and everybody was impacted. And the state's downtown initiative through the Department of Housing and Community Development recognized that downtowns, whether in small towns like Great Barrington or larger cities, Amherst, Northampton, Boston, downtowns are really the core of a community's tax base, a community's civic gathering space, commercial space, cultural space in the case of Great Barrington. So very, very important. So DHCD began this local rapid recovery planning project, the LRRP. And they did sort of have this standard way of going about things in terms of diagnosing what's happening in a downtown, who's here, and what local needs are. But the LRRP, the thing that's really great about it is that it takes input from folks like you, from business owners, from property owners, from people in the downtown, operating in the downtown, and takes that input so that we can determine rapid recovery projects that will help you. So that's the goal here. Laura can go into a little bit more detail, but it's a quick process, relatively 8 to 10, 12 months, Laura. It's a quick process intended to get quickly to implementable projects that hopefully will have some meaningful benefit, not only to recover from the impacts of COVID, but set a strong foundation for the core of downtown moving forward. So thank you all for taking the surveys and for getting your input in, and look forward to chatting in a little while. Laura?
Great, thank you, well said. And I'm Laura Brennan, Economic Development Program Manager at Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. We've been appointed as plan facilitators in Great Barrington for the local rapid recovery planning process. But I've already been working with the town on a contract basis for a number of years, and was involved in the establishment of the Downtown Cultural District a couple of years ago. We're going to do a brief review of LRRP, take a look at the defined study area for the project, and share with you the results of our data collection and survey of local businesses. And then we'll take a look at a few examples of potential projects and leave time for some brainstorming of additional ones. If you have ideas or suggestions after today's session is over, we'll also share a link to an online submission form that will remain open through the month of June. As the summer progresses, we'll hold at least one more meeting like this to look at a draft list and get more project ideas from the community, and then we'll present the final list in August. So first, a quick description of local rapid recovery planning. This is a statewide program being administered by the Department of Housing and Community Development, or DHCD. It was open to all communities, and 125 towns and cities opted in. They were then paired with plan facilitators like ourselves. BRPC is also assisting in Williamstown, North Adams, and Adams. And the process is broken out into 3 phases, as you can see here. Our diagnostic phase has drawn to a close, and we'll share those results today. Then we'll move on into a plan development phase, focusing on 5 to 10 viable projects. We're prioritizing quick, lower cost interventions in this program, things that can be implemented in a 3 to 12 month timeframe. It's important to note that this grant does not include funding for implementation, strictly planning at this point. Part of our work will be to identify potential funding sources for implementation and to make projects happen. And we're also expecting that the state will consider the types of projects that come out of this process as they shape their next round of COVID-related assistance offerings. So here's a map of the study area for the project. We have expanded slightly on the current borders of the downtown Great Barrington Cultural District, extending a bit to the north to encompass some more recent development at the Flying Church, and a bit to the south to include the Chamber's visitor booth and the neighboring parcels. The projects we select will likely also have a positive effect on surrounding neighborhoods, but for the purposes of the diagnostic phase, this is the footprint that we focused on. Next, we'll share some results from our data collection specific to that study area that we just looked at. So in terms of residents of the downtown study area, we found an estimated population of just under 700. On this slide, you'll see that this group is slightly older than Great Barrington as a whole, has a lower median household income, and a slightly smaller household size. We estimate that the downtown population has a very similar educational attainment to the community at large, but skews a bit older and is also less diverse than Great Barrington as a whole. Although the intention of the local rapid recovery planning effort is focused on improving conditions for downtown businesses and nonprofit organizations, it is worth noting that these residents will also be positively affected by the projects we select, and that the whole community benefits from increases in local tax revenue that may come from improving business conditions. Next, we'll take a look at the assessment of physical environment within the study area. So first, a focus on the public realm. Public realm is anything outside of private ownership or control and accessible by members of the public. So one way to visualize this would be anything from the base of a building where it meets the sidewalk out towards and including the street in front of it. In BRPC's assessment of the public realm, we found a range of conditions, as you'll see here. Some elements received an A grade, while others, such as wayfinding and signage, received a C. This is in part because some existing signage is outdated, and also because the signage in downtown is almost entirely vehicular focused rather than catering to pedestrian or bicycle traffic. And this may impact some of the projects that we consider. Next, a look at the private realm side of the physical environment. Again, in our review of the physical environment, we found a range of private realm conditions. Some, such as outdoor dining, received an A grade, but in the case of awnings on commercial buildings and storefronts, the grade came to a C. I'll mention here that respondents to our business survey didn't express the same level of concern over awnings and facades of buildings. It could be that they were considering only themselves or their immediate neighbors when they provided their answers, or that in some cases, conditions have persisted for long enough that they're just no longer noticed by those who are spending a lot of time downtown. But we'd suggest that the fresh perspective that came through our site visits unveiled some areas that really do need some attention. As part of our diagnostic phase, we interacted with organizations who act as stewards of the downtown commercial district in one way or another. These included the town, the Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the Downtown Cultural District's steering committee co-chairs. Each has its unique strengths, each of these organizations, as well as parameters as to what it should be considered responsible for. Depending on which projects end up on the final list, any combination of these entities could help move certain projects forward. And lastly, some notes on the overall business environment. So this slide presents information gathered during our data collection, but it also includes some information gleaned from the survey process. There are some general statistics listed on the left that summarize the number of businesses, storefronts, and vacant storefronts at the current time, along with some information about available space and the average rent prices for commercial space. Then on the left, we begin to look at survey results, or excuse me, on the right, we begin to look at survey results. And I'd caution that this information is based only on the small sampling of those who responded to the survey. The survey was open for approximately 3 weeks. We promoted it via e-newsletters, social media, with paper flyers, and during public meetings. We ended up with 34 responses. And while this does not represent a majority of establishments in the study area, we do consider the responses to be indicative of the overall experience downtown. As you can see here, nearly 3/4 of the respondents generated less revenue in 2020 than during the prior year, and about the same proportion also had fewer on-site customers during January and February of 2021 than before COVID. The ways in which the pandemic affected downtown organizations varied, and the chart here includes a range of possibilities. Many respondents likely experienced more than one of these impacts. Aside from a decline in revenue, expenses related to safety measures or to establishing an alternative mode of sales or delivery were frequently a part of the experience. Only 9% reported that they were not impacted in any of the ways listed here. Respondents were asked to rate their satisfaction with elements of the current conditions downtown. Overall, a high level of satisfaction was found across the board. In fact, the only topic bordering on neutral rather than good was access for customers and employees. This could be related to pedestrian or bicycle access, public transit access, or parking access, which we consider to be the most likely based on responses to other questions in the survey. We also attempted to gauge the degree of interest in various strategies to improve downtown experience. These 5 blocks on this slide here focus only on public realm strategies. Generally, zoning and other regulations were less of a focus for respondents than improvements related to parking, public spaces and seating, and amenities for public transit and bike users. This slide focuses on private realm or public/private combination strategies. Marketing, recruitment of additional businesses, cultural events, and outdoor commerce rated very highly. Renovation of storefronts and facades was a lower priority for respondents, as I mentioned before, and this may need to be achieved through a targeted process with some specific problematic properties. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Chris again, so he can take us through some sample projects in the public and private realms and lead a discussion about any additional ideas you'd like to propose.
Thanks, Laura. Great timing, just as my neighbor's lawnmowers are going full steam. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
A few things before I start on this. The statistics that Laura presented, the amount of retail storefronts, the office space, this total square footage, the residents downtown, the estimated employment, those are things that we did not know before. And so those are very important figures for us to use, to know, and to develop plans, keeping those in mind. I'll add another statistic for you. I was recently crunching some numbers and comparing portions of downtown, the tax base downtown, to like South Main Street or Stockbridge Road. And per acre of space, downtown is 7 to 8 times more valuable in terms of tax valuation for the town. So its importance really can't be overstated in terms of a place to live, a place to do business, its impact on the town budget. And so really just want to underscore the importance of helping downtown businesses and enterprises and residents recover from COVID. And some of the statistics there you saw about how businesses were impacted revenue-wise and foot traffic from COVID, they're not surprising, but you could imagine a town that doesn't have as much retail space, that is owner operated, that is small, sort of foot traffic, tourist focused. You could imagine a town that maybe is more college based or has some other, maybe it's a financial services town or something like that, some other type of industry that might not have been as impacted by COVID. So I think those statistics really show just how important getting around downtown, getting feet on the ground in downtown is to our local businesses. So with that in mind, speaking about potential projects, these are things that based on the responses that we had from the survey, and again, not a lot of responses, but 30 some out of 100 and some establishments, okay, but definitely something we can use. So folks weren't terribly satisfied about access for customers. As Laura said, that may be a parking issue. Things that are important, public amenities, places for events, parking supply and management, of course. So here are some projects. This is not a definitive list. This is by no means to tell you this is what we will work on, because these are really things for us to discuss and maybe tease out over the next few months, add to, subtract from, with your help, again, over the next few months. And let's find out what's feasible. So wayfinding, definitely something important based on what we heard. Getting people around downtown, particularly people who aren't familiar with downtown. Put yourself in a tourist's shoes. Imagine yourself when you go to visit other places. Is it safe? Is it convenient? Is it easy to get around? So that's what wayfinding means. Instead of having our signs focused on cars, as Laura mentioned, how do we focus on customers and the customer experience? Making sure that all of our businesses are familiar and have an ease of use with our regulations. Let's see, looking at our outdoor seating and now dining arrangements, improving that space, making it more comfortable, making it easier for businesses to use it, and more inviting for customers. Public restrooms is in that same category. Once you're downtown, you spend a few hours. Can you be comfortable and spend a few more hours on the sidewalk browsing and maybe grabbing an ice cream cone, etc.? There are some vacant parcels or dilapidated parcels that the town owns at this point. We're the owner of last resort on Reed Cleaners, and I'm happy to say that that is getting cleaned up now. We don't have too much public space, but what we do have could possibly be reused, not reused, but used better, more often. I don't know, this is for discussion. So the town hall gazebo, really well used on weekends. Maybe it can be more than just a weekend space. And looking again at street art, sculpture, ways to enliven the downtown and make it comfortable. And on a hot day like this, maybe some more trees for shade. So go ahead, Laura. Okay. So that was the public realm. That's maybe what the town can control. And in terms of the private realm, maybe what some of you folks may have to take up and do and talk to your fellow business neighbors and owners in the downtown, something that the town might not be able to drive. Directory signage, we have a few businesses on the corners of Railroad and Castle that have the directory signs. That's fantastic, but they need to be updated. Definitely some facades that have seen better days and some awnings that have seen better days. These can be easy projects, but they're generally led by the private sector in this case, because these are private properties, private storefronts, private spaces. There are some vacant spaces. I think the vacancy rate, Laura, based on that survey was 10, no, it's probably 15.
I think 17 current vacant storefronts, which is higher than I would have thought just from walking around.
It's higher. It's higher. It's probably skewed by both the space in the new co-op market building on Bridge Street, as well as the Flying Church. But there are, when you think about it, some upper floors that haven't been filled out, like in the Berkshire block.
Quite a few,
quite a few. But the ones that you can see on the main street where pedestrians are, the human scale there on the street, those can be activated in some ways that could attract people downtown, make it more visually appealing. Let's see, the visitor center, a fantastic resource. The Chamber's been talking about it for a while, how they can renovate it, maybe make it a little bit more accessible. That's a private building on public land, so that might be a public-private approach. Again, if folks have the money, or if they need the money, maybe they can upgrade their dining spaces, their outdoor retail racks, etc. So going after funds to do that may be a project that we all want to work on. And I think we mentioned public art. That has happened in a number of places, like in the alleyways, particularly the Du Bois murals I'm thinking of, which are fantastic ways to activate those spaces. So maybe there's more opportunities for that. What's next, Laura? Okay.
Discussion.
Yeah. So again, those are just ideas based on what we've heard, based on what we know from the surveys and the diagnostic study. Now's the time where hopefully with you today and over the next few weeks, we can hear more about ideas, and then we can tease them out and figure out the feasibility of them. So let's chat.
Chris, I'm going to stop sharing for now, and I'll put some closing slides up when we're ready, but I want us to all be able to see one another here.
Great.
And I think either people muted themselves or I muted you while we were presenting. So if you have anything you'd like to add, just know that you might currently be muted. Chris, do you want to call on people? It looks like Eric has something.
Oh, sure. I guess I'll MC it. Thanks, Eric. Go ahead.
Well, first, thank you for that. It's really good to gather all that information and data. Some of it is obvious, but it's good to have the numbers and the data there, and can inform stuff. I had so many questions actually as we were going along, but I'll go with one or two. Is this just physical changes in the landscape, or is there like stuff like the Berkshire Busk? Is that an eligible thing in what the planning process that goes? Or are we just talking about signs, trees, something you can touch?
That's a great question. So there can be non-physical, non-concrete construction type projects proposed, certainly. They can be, one example may be the improved capacity of the downtown stewards to tackle some of the more concrete projects. So for instance, the cultural district is relatively new, has an entirely volunteer steering committee, has certainly got involved with some downtown activity. With increased capacity for that group, perhaps they might be able to steward some of the other projects that would have a physical impact, or could be programmatic in nature, like Berkshire Busk or something like that.
Okay, so an idea that I've always thought about would be really neat is, all the maps and descriptions of downtown are geared towards tourists, people who aren't familiar with the town, and you hit the, the Mahawi and The restaurants, probably SoCo. And that's what, like, outsiders, that's the understanding of downtown Great Barrington that we want to put out there for outsiders. But there's also the understanding of downtown Great Barrington for the people who've lived here, for some of the families for generations and generations. And if there's a way to sort of bring that out, that I mean, you could have like young people draw maps of the places that were important to them, and as a way to make it, highlight downtown Great Barrington is not just for outsiders, but it's an integral part of the lives of the people who've lived here, sometimes for their entire life. The time they went to the movies, for much older people, the entire framework of the town has probably changed in terms of the patterns in which people might do things. I mean, there was a time when I came here, there were like 4 or 5 hardware stores, and some sort of way of, highlighting, what would a map of like Great Barrington, downtown Great Barrington be for 15-year-olds? What would they point out as the highlights versus people who are 70 years old, or, families that moved here? I don't know what that does, but I think it deepens a sense of understanding of what downtown means.
Yeah.
Then you mentioned Reed Cleaners. I'm curious on what's going on with that, but there's also the old Whitaker's gas station, which had, what's happening with that? That's a property that could do something. And I heard a rumor that John Dewey Academy is moving to New Hampshire. And if John Dewey Academy moves to New Hampshire, I don't imagine they're taking apart the stones on the castle. Do we know anything about that? And there was a time, yeah. So
Yeah.
those are a bunch of ideas and questions, and sorry to throw out just a bunch of stuff all at once.
Oh, that's great.
Reed Cleaners, there's no reuse plan yet. Our intention hopefully is to clean it and learn more about just how much more needs to be cleaned before somebody can actually feel comfortable purchasing and reusing the property. It could be a valuable site for residents, for businesses, for something for downtown. So that's not yet been determined, but we're getting to the point where we will. I'll talk about that. What you call Whitaker's, what some people call Carpenter's Variety, or the Deli, or Wagafers, or Hong Kong Buffet.
Yeah.
See, I've only been here a decade, and yet somehow I know all that.
Yeah.
I don't know the 4 hardware stores, though. I wish I did. So the site that is right across from Town Hall and right next to BCC. That is, that's contaminated with petroleum still from 20, 30 years ago. We've been assessing that site. The town does not own the site. We are moving towards possibly, unfortunately, being the owner of last resort there. We may be, in which case it could be cleaned and reused, either as part of BCC or, but it's a long-term project. It's not a rapid project, maybe as a focus of this program. And yes, John Dewey Academy is moving. The site has been sold, and it won't be demolished, but it will still be a castle, and it will be as private as it ever was. So that's about all I can say right now. So the public can't go in there now. The public won't be able to go in there. So the landmark will stay, but it won't be a, contributing, I guess, to the experience of the commercial district in a tangible way.
One of the, is it okay to interrupt? One of the challenges that I see is creating green space and places where people can sit and gather. And I was in Stockbridge recently, and right on the main drag there, across from the Red Lion Inn, there's a church that has some sort of colorful Adirondack chairs in the front lawn. And there's signs there saying, I forget exactly what they say, but they're inviting people to come in and sit down. And, you know, I'm just sort of wondering how we might be able to create more of these green space opportunities with what we already have. You know, another thought was Town Hall, where we've got a nice gazebo in the back, but there's, you know, a fair amount of space in the front. Maybe that could be tweaked or better utilized. And you might have some other ideas as well.
Thanks, John. One thing that has been kind of popping around Town Hall and we've been discussing on an informal way is redesigning the entire front of Town Hall campus to make it less oriented for cars and much more of a town green.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in discussion. It's a long project, but it may be something where this process maybe lights a little fire under that.
Right.
Maybe.
And there aren't a lot of vacant lots or gaps in between buildings necessarily. Some wide alleys that could be spruced up for nice seating that aren't currently being used that way and don't have any public art in them yet. There's also green space in front of, it's next to Berkshire Bank, and I believe it's in front of the Masonic Temple. That really does not seem to be being cared for very diligently. And I wonder whether there's any sort of reconfiguration and reactivation of that. Smallish, but nice green space.
Robin.
I want to switch back for a moment to the slides that Laura had up. One of them was the public restrooms. And I'm wondering if, Chris, maybe you can say more. I know it's going to be presented at town meeting, correct?
Yes. Yes, we are asking town meeting for funding for public restrooms.
Okay. And where would they be sited?
On the Town Hall campus.
Thank you.
Not in the front. But we need a good way to tell people where they are, right?
I, for one, would welcome that.
So signage and wayfinding would include where to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I have a question here. I'll get on video. Is there any signage just in terms of maps? I agree with Eric that just expanding the information that's on there would be really helpful for locals and all ages. But are there any signs downtown that indicate where parking is available? I know I've seen a great map online, but I think that could be really helpful as well.
There are only a couple, and my understanding is that there are corrections that need to be made to the ones that are posted.
Okay. And another thought, well, I have a couple other thoughts. One is I went out to eat for the first time on Friday night, which felt amazing. And I just felt an overwhelming urge to spend money. I was so delighted to be out among humanity. And I felt like, God, I wish all the shops were open. And I'm wondering, as someone who is not a business owner and not dealing with hiring people and expanding hours, but I'm wondering if even trying one night of stores being open would be helpful on a weekend with so many people on Railroad Street eating out.
Talking like longer hours for?
Yeah, like evening hours, you know, on one Friday or Saturday night or something, and publicizing that.
Robin, you want to speak to that?
As a business owner, I would love to be able to do that. It's been discussed. It's been,
yeah.
Betsy was on here. The chamber has tried it. Right now, everyone, myself included, is in such a hiring crunch that we have to carefully meet out of the hours just to make sure that we have adequate coverage.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a challenge.
I know that that's a huge challenge.
It's a great idea. I think everyone ideally would love to be able to stroll. but unless you have some means of generating enough momentum so that it's not just one or two stores, Eric and myself, for example, it has to be everyone, or people just give up and stop.
Yeah. And then one other thought I've had over the years is if the chamber building, or maybe even at the farmers market or something, if there could be some way to purchase tickets, you know, like the TKTS booth in New York, where it maybe day of tickets, or maybe it's not even the day of, I don't know what is feasible, but to things in the area.
Chamber had that for a while. The chamber had that for a while.
So maybe that's what I'm remembering. I don't know, but
I think they were one of the locations for the half ticks program, where it was like day of discounts for unsold seats. And the way that that program works is that there are multiple locations throughout the county, and you might go to the booth in Great Barrington, but you'd be actually purchasing a ticket for a show at the Colonial in Pittsfield or something like that. But it all rotated. So one day it may be Mahawi tickets, you know, and I'm not certain, I'm sure that the half ticks program was put on hold at least this past year. And I hope that it would be reintroduced this year.
And then
can certainly take a look at that.
Yeah, I don't know. And then my last thought was just the vacant storefronts. Is there anything we can do with those, even offering up one of them as kind of a rotating exhibit space for nonprofits or something, you know, some sort of experience to walk in and learn about
something,
you know, the different cultural organizations or nonprofits in the area.
I agree. There's a wide range of empty storefront activation approaches, including art displays or, you know, interactive activities on a limited time basis. Sometimes people have taken over just the windows. Other times you have things in interior.
Yeah.
We've been talking here at the office about wanting to get people inside these spaces so that they can start thinking about locating their own business there. So I believe that at some point, as long as there's, you know, the building is in safe condition and the town and, you know, building inspector and everybody agrees to it, that you would want to get people in to the space and start thinking about how to make the most of it. So we'll certainly be looking at, particularly with 17 locations on the list, we'll certainly be looking at some way of you know, making more of those spaces as we look at the project list, for sure.
And I wonder if there's some sort of open house or something, you know, specifically targeting people who are interested in opening businesses. There was something on one of the slides about making that process easier. I mean, maybe there's some way to promote that as kind of an open house event or something.
Yeah. Looks like Liana.
Yes, sorry, I didn't rename myself. So from a marketing standpoint, going way back when I used to serve on the chamber board, I always thought, you know, Lenox has a Shop Lenox brochure, which is kind of nice. And I always thought Great Barrington should have one. And so one day I mocked it up for fun. And I realized that Great Barrington has this pretty large and unique group of stores, right? So Robbins is one of them, TP Saddle Blanket, Matrushka. I mean, these are not stores that exist anywhere else, right? And when you put them all together, I counted, including like Asia Barong, about 26 of these totally unique, amazing shopping experiences. And if those were marketed as a group and then publicized, and then you bring your bus tours in, loads of people from New York City, you know, you've just got traffic, people spending money, people having experiences, also going out to eat and going to the movies as well, because once you're done with your day of shopping, you know, it's literally a weekend's worth of shopping and you could stay over. And I just thought that, you know, New York Magazine or New York or somebody would love to pick up that story of this place that has, you know, no big box retail. Every single retail shop in downtown is completely cool and unique and fun. And there are shoppers who would just love to take a weekend trip to Great Barrington. So it's a multifaceted marketing campaign, but it seems like, there was some interest expressed in helping to pay for that by one of the local hotels. Loved the idea and wanted to put all those brochures and that kind of trip experience right, in the lobby. So happy to share something I have in a folder that's probably 9 years old now. But yeah.
That would be great. Thank you.
Liana, to your point, this is Robin. I think that Betsy from the Chamber has talked about organizing some tours. I mean, personally, of course, I would love one to be independent retailers. But am I right, Laura? Was it on one of our meetings, or Chris?
I don't know.
Brought up the fact that the Chamber is trying to organize these themed tour experiences.
Yeah, they've been working on that for a while.
Great,
But
that's exciting.
It's pretty complex. I'm not really sure how far they've gotten.
It's a great idea. It's,
Mhm.
I mean, personally speaking as well, but I think that we do have in our retail base of independent shops, as you said, things that you just aren't going to find in other locations.
Yeah, it's a great media story. And
You just muted
You're
yourself.
muted.
if there are nonprofits going into vacant spots, I'm happy to help coordinate that. I'm just thinking, Berkshire Pulse could have a class downtown because they don't have a downtown place, right? They're in Housatonic. That would really be helpful to them. But also, I see all the time on the chat boards, where can my kid get dance lessons? So it just, I agree that it would be a very nice community and tourist service to make that kind of thing available. And who knows, maybe nonprofits will say, oh my God, I've got to have a downtown space now. Nonprofits do make up at least lots of Richard Stanley spaces anyway. So it's not out of the question to that they become downtown. Retail storefronts a little expensive for nonprofit, but.
Thanks, Liana.
Yeah, thank you. Any other ideas that somebody would like to share, or reactions to the sample projects that we put up on the screen?
We have a moment to introduce who's on the call.
Oh, thank you, Robin. That would be great. Why don't I call on people, and you can just introduce yourself and share whether you're here representing a specific organization or just yourself and your family, whatever you'd like to share with us. So I'll start with Seth.
I'm Seth Keys, St. James Place, and my own company, Artistic License. Based here at St. James. And I have to go, actually, so I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks.
Thank you, Seth. Seth is also a member of the Cultural District Steering Committee. Robin.
The owner of Robin's Candy on Main Street, and also a member of the Great Barrington Cultural District and the Chamber, the cultural, late at night, and a member of the CDCSB.
Great, thank you. Susie?
Hi, I'm Susie Kolpitz, and I'm here representing WBCR LP 97.7 FM. We have our studio on Main Street.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Ed.
Ed Abrams. I'm the Great Barrington Select Board and co-chair of the Downtown Cultural District.
And very active with the library, also downtown.
Oh, so president of Friends of the Library. I'm a cemetery commissioner too, if that comes up.
It's not on the project list.
Okay.
Liana.
Hi, I'm Liana Toscanini, founder of the Nonprofit Center of the Berkshires, which had an office on Railroad Street up until December when we decided we were never there, so we didn't need it anymore. But Richard Stanley says he'll keep it for us if no one rents it. So we may be back, but our heart is certainly in downtown, and we miss our coffee at Fuel.
John?
Hi, I'm John Kaplan. I have a home in Evermont, and I'm interested in planning, and I'm a Great Barrington fan. So I was glad to see that this was an open Zumba. Thank you.
Great. Rebecca?
I'm Rebecca Gold, just an interested resident, heard about it through Eileen Mooney. Where else? Who else? I liked being invited. I thought that was great. I am always eager to brainstorm and problem solve, and I'm a freelance copywriter, so I kind of come at things from marketing standpoint. And I'm also on the community impact funding committee for the dispensary money, and I think some of the stuff we've discussed here could be appropriate to fund through that money, because one of the things we're trying to mitigate possibly is something some people are concerned about, which is the reputation of the town. So I can see how perhaps the brochure, for example, could be something maybe funds could be applied for from that fund to pay for that.
Interesting. Thank you. Wiley?
Hi. Sorry, my connection's a little slow, but I'm Wiley Goodman. I recently joined VRPC as a senior planner working on economic development with Laura. Really happy to be here.
And Eileen?
Eileen sometimes can't talk through her computer.
Okay. She may also be the number here, but
Yeah.
not unmuting. So,
There
there we
she
go.
is.
There she is.
I'm unmuted. I forgot to unmute. Eileen Mooney. I published the newsletter.
Great. Thank you for joining us. Anne?
Hi. So I'm just a kind of a new resident in Great Barrington, and I too was happy to receive an invitation. I'm just curious to know what's going on here, and certainly Great Barrington had a lot of appeal because of its proximity to all the wonderful cultural things in the area, as well as the wonderful shops downtown and restaurants. And I really hope to see things get going again. I had one idea when somebody mentioned there with a radio station on Main Street. When I visited my daughter years ago in Knoxville, Tennessee, there was a public radio station on Main Street that at lunchtime would have concerts, and they had a limited number of people who could come in at a given time, but it brought people over there at lunchtime, and that's just another way perhaps of getting some more foot traffic.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
And welcome.
Thanks.
Jackie?
Hi, my name is Jackie Kane. Are you seeing a symbol for a hummingbird?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm hiding behind that. I'm working with the Clinton Church Restoration Project, and I'm also working with WBCR on their board. And hi, Susie.
Yes. And Liana put in the chat that it's so nice to have residents and new folks participating, and agreed. Thank you. This is fantastic.
Add a quick commercial for Anne. If you don't get Eileen's newsletter, Eileen, start typing the information in the chat. You should. It's a great way to know what's going on in town.
Yeah.
And it's not. Yeah.
Thank you. Great.
Can I ask a question? Is this video going to be posted somewhere for us to see?
Yes. Yep. It's probably going to be a lag of about a day before we post it, but we will do that. And then we'll share the link on the Cultural District's Facebook page and probably the town's Facebook page as well. And so you'll be able to find it there.
Thank you.
I also had another question. You mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that there would be a place for online feedback that would be open through June.
Yes, that brings me to my very next task, which is to share my screen again so that you can see this link to a single question survey. All we ask is, do you have any additional ideas and what are they? And if you'd like, you can use that QR code to save the link on your phone.
We see your Berkshire Busk reminder. Good luck, Berkshire Busk.
Oops, Berkshire Busk is doing in 9 minutes. They're pitching. And hopefully,
There we
so
go.
everybody, that's your next Zoom. Go watch the pitch contest. Thank you, Chris.
So yeah,
Um,
folks, feel free to hit that survey and let your neighbors know. We'll send this out to the chamber also and post this, right, Laura?
Yes.
So that we can continue to generate some ideas over the next couple weeks.
Can I ask for Anne and Jackie, how did you hear about this when you were invited? Was it via the newsletter? How did you hear it?
This is Jackie. I
Yeah.
basically heard about it from Eileen and somebody else who said this is really important to pay attention
Just
to.
talking about it, word of mouth
Yeah.
kind of thing. Okay. And Anne?
Definitely.
I had an email. I thought it was from the town.
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
not- yeah.
Well, there was a list that the town had been developing of local business people, but I don't know if maybe somehow you ended up on that.
I can't tell you offhand. I could email you I could search my email if you
I
want.
just want to make sure to be able to keep you informed as we move forward.
Oh, thanks. I
So
appreciate
if you
that.
could put your email in the chat,
Okay.
that way we can add you to a general list that we'll share more updates with.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. Everybody have a chance to take down this link or to snap okay. And that brings us to a close. So thank you all again.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Night.
Bye.
Right.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Laura. Have a good night.